Hey everybody, so today I'm going to be doing a deep dive into everyone's favorite character, Viserys Targaryen. And I am totally kidding, of course, but before I get into my examination, spoiler alert for the Game of Thrones show as well as the books. As with all my examinations, this will be spoiler filled, so proceed with caution. Alright, and so the first thing I want to say is if you go to like the Game of Thrones wiki, it has Viserys listed as like killed by his brother-in-law, which I just find hilarious because like I guess technically that's true, but like I would never have like thought of that in my head that way, but like technically he is Khal Drogo's brother-in-law, so I just thought that that was really funny. But so what I want to talk about with Viserys is just a couple different aspects that I think that make him really interesting because with Viserys, I mean, you have this kind of quintessential person who is born into something that they feel like they deserve for no reason other than it being their birthright. And it sets up this kind of split between Daenerys and Viserys' approach to kind of taking the throne. Viserys thinks that he should have the throne because it is his birthright, because it's his. Um, and that's a little different than what Daenerys does. But with Viserys, I mean, at times he was called the Beggar King. I mean, when he was traveling around the free cities, he was literally begging people for armies, for food at times. Just things were not well. Quick to anger. I mean, treats Daenerys absolutely horribly. I mean, he delivers that just he shows just total disdain for Daenerys when he's referring to what he would let Khal Drogo's army and his horses do to her. It just completely total jerk. I don't think that anybody likes Viserys, and we're not supposed to like Viserys. We're supposed to see what this kind of entitlement looks like on a person. He's the embodiment of entitlement, um, and that plays out really interestingly. Because we also it's really funny because Viserys gets played. I mean, there's no other way around it. I mean, he thinks that he is basically selling his sister to Khal Drogo and that he will get an army in return. And it becomes pretty clear pretty quickly. Khal Drogo has no intention of giving him an army. None whatsoever. He's just wanted Daenerys. And Viserys kind of I hate to say justifiably with anything with Viserys because he's just such a loathsome character. But Khal Drogo did not fulfill their agreement. And so like he is justifiably upset, I guess. I guess like technically via their contract. Um which just I mean just right away right from the get-go, Game of Thrones introduces this moral greatness where you have this guy who's I guess technically in the right, but you hate him so much that you are okay that he's getting played. Um but then we also see, I mean, Viserys is Daenerys's window into what Westeros is like. And you see that with some of the conceptions that Daenerys has about Westeros. I mean, she refers to like Ned Stark and the Lannisters as the usurper's dogs, and obviously she refers to Robert Baratheon as the usurper. She thinks of her father as being kind of a great man. I think that she knows that maybe he did some bad things, but I think that Viserys painted it in a much kinder light than is accurate. And then with Rhaegar, I mean, she hears a ton of good things about Rhaegar. Now, Viserys mostly highlights the more violent aspects of Rhaegar, and it's not until later when Daenerys talks to Sir Barristan that she learns more of the some of the other good qualities of Rhaegar. But to our understanding, is the stuff about Rhaegar is actually probably more accurate than the stuff that's taught in Westeros because it just does a really cool job of showing the way that history is taught by the victors or just basically by whoever is telling the history. History is taught by the historians, and so I think that that is an interesting aspect. But so we have Viserys, and he is just so entitled, and that's his approach to getting the throne. And so we learn pretty quickly in Game of Thrones that entitlement is not that's not going to get you to the throne. And that's really cool because we see Viserys die super early on. I'm not sure if him or Robert go first. It's really close. It's almost back to back. And it's the same in the books. So like they literally happen like chapters apart. Um, but Viserys, I mean, originally when you were watching the show, he seems like he maybe could be a player. He is technically the Targaryen heir. He's annoying as heck, but like you think that okay, maybe this guy's gonna make, but he dies really quickly. So first off, right off the bat, we get to see Game of Thrones is pretty willing to kill potentially influential characters. I feel like nobody would really think of Viserys as being influential, because he dies so quickly. But I mean, when you really think about it, like when you look at like where the chessboard is lined up at the beginning of the show, I mean, you would think that Viserys would be a powerful player. I mean, he has potentially a Dothraki army. He is a Targaryen. He has the birthright. Um, but we see pretty early on that this is a battle of wits. The Game of Thrones. This is a battle of smarts and conniving and scheming. And entitlement just isn't going to get you there. And so that's what really I feel like the next thing I want to talk about is how that kind of separates Daenerys from Viserys with their approach to taking the throne. Yes, Daenerys also feels incredibly entitled to the throne. She feels like because she is a Targaryen that it is her throne, it is her family's throne. But she doesn't think it should just be given to her essentially. Like she does want everyone to bend the knee to her, but you see a ton of parallels, and obviously this was intentional. A ton of parallels between her and Aegon the Conqueror, because I mean, the Three Dragons is the most obvious, and you have Dario Naharis saying it later in the show. He goes, "You're not a ruler, you're a conqueror," and that is what the Targaryens that originally came to Westeros, Aegon. That's what they were. Is they were conquerors, and this is what Daenerys is. She will take. She says it in the great line. I will take what is mine with fire and blood. She says, you're going to give it to me, or I'm going to burn you to the ground. And that's just so different than Viserys. Viserys, was a lot of talk with very little bite to him. I also think that Viserys, I mean, just right from the back, we see that Viserys just wouldn't even be a good ruler. Like if he was ruler, like yeah, he's a jerk, but it's like oh maybe he'd be a good ruler. Then he's talking to Jorah, and like Jorah tells him about how he's there because of slavery, and he's like oh if I was in charge, that sort of thing would be rewarded, not punished. And it's like Jesus, you're coming out in favor of slavery too. Like Viserys is literally such a loathsome character, and it just I mean you see he comes to the end with pointing the sword at Daenerys and saying that he's gonna kill her, and then Drogo gives him the crown of gold, a crown fit for a king. But anyway, I think that Viserys really interesting. Our window into Game of Thrones, willing to kill some main people, and just kind of that they're not going to go the entitlement angle. That wasn't going to be the angle. It's not like birthright means very little if you have nothing to back it up. Daenerys, yes, has this birthright to an extent. I mean, arguably, she really doesn't have like a birthright because she's a woman. Like that would make it very difficult for her to have any like reasonable claim in Westeros because that's not how they do it. They don't like women aren't in line for the throne, and so she is more of a conqueror than anything. And I think that that's really interesting, and I feel like that's why so many people are drawn to Daenerys because of how impressive her conquests are. But don't want to talk about Daenerys too much. This is about Viserys, and he is he's I would love to meet someone who Viserys is their favorite character. I would love to meet that person. Anyway, if you guys disagreed with anything I said in this examination, please leave a comment down below. But if you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe, and have a great day.